Hokage is a title given to the leader of the Hidden Leaf Village. They are chosen based on their strength as they are required to defend the village from any invasions. While they may have been the strongest in the village during their time, they may not have been the smartest, and some decisions that they make can affect the internal affairs of the village, as well as its reputation outside its walls, which can lead to conflict with other villages and division amongst clans within their borders. Currently we've had 7 Hokages. This list will rank them according to what they've accomplished during their reign, starting with who I think is absolutely the worst Hokage in the history of the Hidden Leaf Village. Hiruzen Tobi, the 3rd Hokage. By no means is this man weak. He was even known as the Professor of Shinobi, but he did have a weak personality. One so soft you could squeeze it like a sponge and it does nothing but recoil to its former shape. He was given this role because he showed bravery during the first Great Shinobi War, and the 2nd Hokage decided to make him his successor before going on a suicide mission, which is ironic because every other time he needed to be brave, he failed. Evident when he had a chance to kill Orochimaru, but he didn't, because he still saw him as his precious student, which led to his own demise after he attacked the village and didn't even bother to spare him. You could indirectly blame him for creating this monster, and for all the people he killed and experimented on. Danzo tried to assassinate him multiple times and he only acknowledged that he knew that it was him, but did nothing to prosecute his actions, which allowed him to interfere in the politics of smaller villages, and that led to the creation of the Akatsuki that we came to know. He conspired with Orochimaru to kill him and knew about his plans to attack the village, but not before playing a substantial role in wiping out the Uchiha clan so he could steal their Sharingans, which created Sasuke the villain and the sad life of Itachi. You could indirectly blame the 3rd Hokage for his own demise, the Uchiha massacre, and the villains that would go on to create a rampage, because he made personal feelings get in the way of making rational decisions, and showed too much compassion to people who wouldn't even try to return the favor. Not to mention they had 2 great Shinobi Wars under his leadership, most likely because of his poor decision skills. He even neglected his son his entire life. He wasn't even a great dad. Hiruzen can be blamed for a lot of major problems that happened throughout the series. Tsunade only became Hokage because the rest still wanted to carry on with his life of being a pervert. I bet he's doing a lot of research in the afterlife. No wonder so many of the female little tenseis come back looking like they've seen something scarier than a ghost. It was probably him. Tsunade was unable to stop pain from completely annihilating the village. She failed in her primary task of being Hokage, and all the people who were dependent on her for protection. In fact, if Naruto didn't convince Nagato enough to use the Ren Rebirth Jutsu, we would have lost many valuable characters. Some people might argue that she did everything she could, or that she didn't do enough, but it doesn't change the fact that she was Hokage at that time, so it all falls on her shoulders, and she has to live with that for the rest of her very, very long life. Regardless of that, it could have ended a lot worse. She also invented the Mitonic Regeneration Jutsu, which allows her to store chakra in a seal on her forehead, that she can use to heal herself without weaving hand signs, and keep her youthful appearance, which makes her look like this. But don't be fooled, she actually looks like this. She played a minor role in forming the Shinobi Alliance to unite the 5 great nations, which was only possible because they faced a common threat from the Akatsuki. So we can't give her all the credit because it wasn't her personal decision. We can't credit this achievement to any single person, but we can commend her for being such a good team player, and for being reasonable enough to agree to it, because any one of them could have disagreed given the history they have with each other. It's one of the best things to happen in the Shinobi world, because there was only constant fighting amongst them, and it's been going well for over 16 years, mostly because of the threat that they now face from the Otsuzukis. I think it was a redeeming factor for her and their greatest accomplishment as Hokage. Minato was known as the Yellow Flash because he was the fastest ninja to have ever lived. He was responsible for ending the 3rd Great Shinobi War after he single-handedly defeated 1,000 shinobi from the Stone Village, which forced all of them to sign a peace treaty with the Leaf Village. He was later given the title of 4th Hokage, but it wasn't for a long time, because he lived a very short life. I'm not sure if it goes with the saying, live fast, die young, but that's exactly how his character was portrayed. He was a child prodigy and had many great achievements that made him the youngest Hokage in the history of the village. He didn't implement any policies that had any effect on the village. If he did, it could have affected his position on this list. The way he carried out the main objective of being Hokage, which is to protect the village, and never failing his duty to accomplish that, made him very good at this role. In fact, if he hadn't placed a jutsu on Naruto's seal to reset it if it was to ever be broken, pain would have pushed him to bring out the full 9 tails and not even the stone faces would still be standing. He saved the village twice from absolute destruction. He also created an A-rank jutsu called the Rasengan and mastered the flying Raijin jutsu created by the 2nd Hokage. A lot of people question why he chose to seal the demon fox inside his son, which made him have a horrible life growing up as a Jinchuriki, but it turned out to be one of the best decisions ever made in the series. Tobirama is a very controversial character. You either love him or hate him. He's made many contributions in developing the fundamental systems of the village, but he also made a lot of questionable decisions that gave rise to many future conflicts. He didn't think about the consequences his actions would have on the Uchiha clan because he despised them so much. Uchiha, racist. and many of the jutsus he created were later forbidden because they were too dangerous. Jutsus like the Tensei, which fell into the hands of villains like Orochimaru and Kabuto, was the reason they could sustain a war against the 5 great nations. The multi-shadow clone jutsu is forbidden because it requires so much chakra that it can kill the user. The only reason Naruto was able to use it was partially because he's from the Uzumaki clan, and he had a large reserve of chakra that he could use from the Nine-Tails. If anyone else should try to use it like he did, they would die. He also created the Flying Raijin Jutsu, which is an S-rank technique that him and the 4th Hokage are known for. He was the founder of the Anbu Force, the Hidden Leaf Police Force, and the idea of 3-man teams, which has since been used for every team. So obviously he's made quite a few contributions. But we can't overlook his treatment of the Uchiha clan and the negative impact it had on the village, all because he wasn't too fond of them. We could indirectly blame him for the Uchiha massacre as much as Hiruzen, because he started it and Hiruzen allowed it to end. I guess that's what Tobirama was teaching him. The first great Shinobi War happened when he was Hokage, because while Hashirama was open to listen to everyone else's demand regardless of how unreasonable they were, Tobirama only cared about the position of Konoha amongst the other villages, which is probably why the need for resources became more of a competition. There's no denying that he's done great things, but you also can't ignore the fact that his decisions caused many problems both internally and beyond the walls of the village. Kakashi was famously known as the Kappa Ninja before he became the 6th Hokage. It's said that he copied over 1,000 jutsus using his Sharingan, but we've only seen him use a handful of them. We're still waiting for him to show us what else he can do apart from the same old tricks. He became one of the youngest Jonins at the age of 12, and the leader of his Anbu squad at the age of 13. But apart from being a very talented shinobi, he's also very intelligent. He developed 2 S-rank jutsus, the Lightning Blade and Purple Lightning, and an A-rank jutsu called the Chidori. During his time as Hokage, there was a lot more infrastructure developed, and he strengthened the ties between the allied shinobi forces, and created a network of transportation between the 5 great nations, which allowed them to trade, communicate, and travel amongst each other much easier. We hardly see anyone jumping from tree to tree anymore because they can just take a train, and it helps to preserve their chakra and stamina to use when they need it more. We might see the development of more forms of transportation, but for now railways are the most popular ones. He also pioneered the technological age of the Leaf Village, which is why we're seeing the use of more technology like scientific ninja tools and devices used to communicate over longer distances. Many of the modern development that we now see in the village is all thanks to him. Hashirama is known as the god of shinobi. He was one of the founders of the Hidden Leaf Village along with his friend Madara Uchiha. Before villages were implemented, there were states where clans would constantly fight against each other, and shinobi were a lot more divided. When he finally managed to form a village, a lot of different clans came to live there and learn to live peacefully. There was relative peace amongst them because they were now united for a common purpose, to help build this establishment. However, it wasn't the end of conflict in the shinobi world as more clans from different nations copied his idea and seek dominance under the banner of their village. He captured all the 9-tailed beasts that were roaming about and causing destruction to keep the villages safe, but then decided to even the balance of power between them by dividing them amongst the 5 great nations, which shows the length that he was willing to go to keep peace amongst them. The first great shinobi war would have happened a lot sooner if he wasn't Hokage, because he was open to listen to their demands even though he couldn't satisfy all of them. He would have done anything to stop them from going to war because all he wanted was to bring about change from the warring states that they all lived in. People tend to forget how much worse it was during that period of time. Wars were as frequent as Tobirama wishing every Uchiha would roll over and die. That's a lot of wars. He was also the first user of the wood release Kekkei, which is why cells are so valuable, because no one else was ever capable of using it. Without Hashirama, there probably wouldn't be any villages, the 5 great nations, or even the title of Hokage. Finally, at number 1, the greatest Hokage of all time is undoubtedly Naruto Uzumaki, the 7th Hokage. While previous Hokages only had to worry about defending the village, he has to worry about keeping the entire shinobi world safe from the threat of the Otsutsuki's, which he's done on multiple occasions. We have to realize that what it means to be Hokage requires a lot more given the threat that they now face. No other Hokage had to face anyone as dangerous as them, because they wish to harvest all the energy from the planet, but they haven't succeeded yet mostly because of him. When Sasuke was still a rogue ninja, he threatened to revolutionize the shinobi world. The definition of Hokage as we know it now would have long been forgotten if he wasn't able to stop him. Everything that they had done so far would have been for nothing. The major role that Naruto played during the 4th Great Ninja War is one of the reasons the Shinobi Alliance has been going good for so long. They find it easy to trust him. He also mastered the 2nd Hokage's multi-shadow clone jutsu and developed an S-rank jutsu with the help of Kakashi, called the Rasen Shuriken. We've also seen further development in science, technology, and infrastructure while he's been Hokage, and the tail beasts are no longer a threat to shinobi and their villages because he was able to befriend them. His achievements absolutely surpass every other Hokage on this list. Let me know if you agree and what your list would have looked like in the comment section below. The character you see in the videos is called Scrolly. If you have an idea of an animation you want to see him do, you can join my Patreon and I will have it done and featured on the channel. The link is in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Until then, this is Kage Level signing out.